happy 2025. I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little bit optimistic about this year, but I want to preface that by saying 2024 was tough for many reasons. But I reflected a lot over these past couple of weeks before the new year, and I just feel kind of optimistic for what 2025 has to offer. Granted, I mean, it's probably going to be a difficult year based off of the past couple of years, but I think for me personally, it helps to be in this space of like excitement and newness so that I can, focus on some goals and dreams that I have without putting any pressure on myself. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling about the new year so far. But today I wanted to do my first reading vlog. I've never done a reading vlog before. I'm someone that kind of like reads very like isolated and quickly. But I'm trying to read a lot slower this year, or slower isn't the word. I'm a fast reader in general. I'm trying to read a lot more intentionally, which means like taking my time while reading books, and maybe even just allowing myself some space after I read books to fully process them. So we'll see. I'm trying it out. I hope that it sticks. And so far it's been difficult, I'm not gonna lie, because the book that I'm reading is so good. And there's a part of me that wanted to just finish it in 2 days. But because I wanted to film this reading vlog, I had to stop and wait until I was ready to film, which means that I waited like maybe 2 days and stopped reading. Granted, I have already read the first 100 pages of the book, but I paused. And that's new for me. So I'm gonna take that as a win. But yeah, I'm gonna take you guys along as I read this book. And the book is Oh Sinners by Nicole Cuffy. Nicole Cuffy wrote Dances, which I think came out, I wanna say 2 years ago, which I did enjoy. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't bad. It was very much so like an in-between book for me. But this book is so different. And it has all the things I'm interested in. I love cults. I research a lot about cults. Every cult documentary that's out there, I've probably seen it. It's just a thing that I'm very interested in. I mean, when I say I'm interested in, like, I'm just interested in the concept of like the human experience. I think cults are terrible, but they are all a bit formulaic in a way. So I'm wondering how she tackles that in this book, but let me read the description. A young journalist reeling from loss investigates a mysterious cult in the California redwoods, only to be drawn in by its charismatic leader. An addictive novel that asks why people give up control and what it takes ultimately to find your place in the world. I mean, yeah, I was sold. Something else that sold me is the cult leader is a Black man, which I don't see often at all. So that was very interesting. And the book so far takes place in present day. We were following the journalist, and he has experienced a lot of grief and loss. Most recently, his father has just passed away, and he hasn't dealt with it at all. And now he's going into, and he's very hyper-focused on this cult and learning more about them, and is like just really work-driven. And unfortunately for him, as someone that studies cults, like, he is a perfect candidate to be drawn into the allure of a cult. And a part of him still feels like, oh, I'm just gonna go here for work. But it's just like, I'm reading it, I'm like, and then we have the past story, which is about, I'm assuming about the cult leader's time during the Vietnam War. So we're kind of bouncing from the Vietnam War to present day. And it's so interesting. At first I was like, okay, this shift was a bit jarring, but once you get used to it, it's like, okay, we've got these two main characters who are clearly struggling with identity and also rage, right? There's like you can see like some rage is like boiling up between the two of them. And I guess the question is like, what do different people do when they maybe have unexplained rage, or how does rage impact their life decisions and the ways that they move around the world? I think that's a question that's being asked from both of them. Not entirely sure yet, but yeah, like I said, I'm 100 pages in so far. And the book is over 400 pages, so we've got a lot to get through. Right now, I'm going to continue reading, and then I think I'm going to go to a coffee shop as well today too, so that I'll probably read a little bit more there too. It's kind of hard to read at home sometimes because I'm just thinking about like things that I need to do, like laundry, you know, that kind of stuff. But when I'm out, I'm only focused on like reading. So I like to read in coffee shops for sure. And I haven't had any caffeine yet. So I already know a couple pages into this, I'm gonna need some caffeine. So yeah, I'm gonna read. I'm at the part where the journalist, his name is Farouk. He's on his, basically he's like at the cult's base right now in the Redwoods, and he's on a run, and he feels like someone is watching him and following him. So yeah, there's like a bit of like a spooky element that to me feels like kind of like a bit of a dark cloud as I'm reading the book. And that's kind of how I feel when I'm learning about cults and things like that. It's like, you know, that part where you feel like the other shoe's about to drop, something bad is about to happen. That's kind of how I feel reading this book so far, 100 pages in. So yeah, I could definitely feel that in this particular part too. Okay, I'm at the part where Farouk is on a run. He also talks about doing a 4-minute mile, which seems like impossible to me. But I'm not a runner, so. But he runs into a wolf, and it reminds me of the cover, which this is a wolf on the cover. So that's always interesting. But he says that he couldn't remember what you were supposed to do in this situation. Were you supposed to play dead, try to look big, throw something, make a startling noise, or would that just convince the wolf to attack? And that's a fair question because I don't know what I would do if I were to run into a wolf. Anyways, that's just what I just thought about. Okay, so now we're at the part where Farouk ends up just kind of like running way too fast, way too hard. So now he's like nauseous and in pain, and he runs into the leader. His name is Odo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's spelled Odio. And he just asked him, where are you running to? And Farouk goes, oh, what do you mean? And he goes, oh, I know the cliche is to ask what you're running from, but seems to me you're running towards something, for something. Where are you trying to go, scholar? And Farouk says, forward. And then Odo says, to what? What do you need? Farouk goes, I don't know. And then Odo goes, nuh-uh, you know, Farouk, speak it. Very like culty vibes. Like that whole interaction of just like, you know, continuing to ask circular questioning to make people kind of like break is very clear in this like monologue or interaction that they're both having. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really into this book, so I'm very excited. Okay, I'm back home. I was going to do an update at the coffee shop, but the music was astronomically loud. I don't know what was going on there, but it was way too loud, and I'm still trying to get used to filming in public, so I figured I would just give an update once I'm home. So now I'm home. I've got my cozy robe on. Skincare is done for the night. I have my cup of tea, a little W on there, and if you have not a famous letter, you know how nice it is to find things with your letters. So that's one of my favorite mugs. And yeah, I'm just gonna spend the next, I don't know, couple of hours before bedtime reading. But as an update, I forgot to mention the way that the book is structured. So as the journalist is investigating the cult, Farouk, right? That's his name. I'm really bad at remembering characters' names, so please forgive me. I feel like his name is Farouk. Yes. So Farouk first found out about the cult, which is called The Nameless, by the way, from a documentary. So in between some of the chapters, we get to see different, how would I describe it? It's like you're reading the documentary, like the interviewer is interviewing like members of the documentary, just members of Nameless, the cult, and then they had an issue because they tried to expand to Texas, and it didn't, like, the community is not having it at all. So they're interviewing one of the pastors in that community, and then they're interviewing like a founding member of the cult as well too. So it's written almost like you're reading a script of the documentary, and I think that that's such a cool thing to add to the book, down to like the point where it's like I'm saying character, but each person as they're talking, there's like little footnotes of like what the music sounds like as well too. Just like you're like imagining watching like a documentary, you know how like when the music changes, that means something is happening or something is shifting. It's written just like that. And I think that is such a cool thing to add to the book. As I'm reading, I'm recognizing that this book low-key must have taken a really long time. It's very clear that there's been a lot of research that has been done in writing it, and it's also quite ambitious for a book because there's different storylines, there's different parts, there's different people, they have all different types of like characteristics and things like that. So to be on top of all those things must have been truly a feat. But I'm really enjoying this book, like honestly, like when I had to close it to go like be a human, I'm thinking about it and like really looking forward to reading it. And again, that means that I'm really enjoying the book. So I'm about to cozy up and get to reading with my tea. And yeah, I'll check back in a little bit. Something that I also forgot to mention, I know a lot of people like to like either listen to nothing when they're reading or like jazz music, and like, you know, people put on those like YouTube like screens where it's like the music and the setting is nice. Yeah, that's not me. I like to watch a comfort show while I read, and mine is The Parkers. At any given time of year, I'm watching The Parkers. That's just my show. I don't have an explanation for that. It's just one of my favorite shows. So because I've seen every episode at least maybe 100 times at this point, I know exactly what's happening, so I don't have to really pay attention to it. It's just background noise. So yeah, I'm going to be watching The Parkers in the background while I read. So it's the next day. I fell asleep kind of early yesterday because I had been up late the night before, so I was really tired. So I was only able to get through a couple of pages, but I'm also back to work today, so I'm gonna try to read when I have breaks throughout the day. But so far, I'm still very much so enjoying the book. Yeah, again, I feel like this book is really ambitious, but so far has been a success because there's just so many different things happening at once, but it's all tied together in a way that flows really well. But yeah, I'll check back in with another update soon. I definitely stayed up until 3 a.m. yesterday finishing this book. I could not put it down towards the like ending part of the book, like the second half of the book, because it was just so like I started having all these questions and all these feelings. Yeah, I'm not somebody that rates books like does star ratings anymore. I don't know. I don't really do them. However, I will say that I know for a fact that this book is going to make it on my end of year favorites list for sure. Again, like I mentioned before, this book is quite ambitious and could have gone wrong many times, like many times. However, I do feel like everything ended in a way that was concise and complete. I know some people might not agree with that, but I think it did, because again, we have so many different storylines going. We have the present day storyline, we have the past storyline, which is during the Vietnam War, and in between both of those is the script for the documentary that the cult is based on, or that the documentary that was created to describe the cult or talk about the cult, and we have that script in between. So like, that's so many things to be juggling at once. However, I think the author did a fantastic job. The writing was really, really immersive. I felt like the intention was to create this kind of looming dark feeling of like something bad is about to happen, something bad is about to happen, and that kind of like just follows you throughout the story. I thought that was great. I thought the pacing was good. For a bigger book, I felt pretty like locked in the entire time, which sometimes that doesn't happen for me, but I definitely did. What else did I enjoy about it? I think I mentioned this earlier, but it definitely was an exploration of rage and how it shows up for us, and to see the dynamic between Farouk, who is the journalist, and then the cult leader Odo. Their dynamic was so interesting. Like, I don't want to give too much away, of course, but watching their interactions at first was interesting, but by the time the book ends, it's like, oh, wow. That's what I'll say. I would like the way that the author describes both of them is so like, they feel so different to you in the beginning of the book, but by the end of the book, you're like, dang, you both like are experiencing a level of rage that's different, but also the same. And it's showing up in different ways as well too. Like, I don't know. I loved it. I feel like, again, the author did so many beautiful things in that particular like balance of the two main characters. Loved it. I also think the exploration of grief was interesting. I kind of wish it was more in the forefront, maybe. I don't know. I think maybe it was a little bit more in the forefront. I would feel differently, but I think like the ways that we see grief from the way that Odo, the cult leader, experienced it and the way that Farouk experienced it were so different, but also very similar in a way. I just wish there was like a little bit more on the grief tip, but outside of that, I think it's a fantastic book that I could easily see potentially I'm like, could they format it to be a movie or a show? Maybe. It did feel very cinematic. I'll definitely say that. It's very detailed. The story again flows really, really well. I very much so recommend it. Very much so recommend it. Again, it comes out March 18th. And I definitely think that a lot of people will enjoy it. But if you're not really interested in like cults or like power dynamics or like anger, rage, grief, maybe not. I don't know. I loved it. Like, I don't have any notes, like none, no notes at all. So for my third book of the year, this was like, just knocked it out of the park for sure. Well, that is my first reading vlog. It was really fun. I have to say that. Like, normally I have to like save my reactions and stuff for a book club. Like, I host a book club and, you know, we meet once a month. So I kind of save all of my reactions for that. But to be able to kind of pause and just talk about different parts of the book while I was reading was really fun. I really liked that a lot. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video or have any ideas for me to try to film on this channel. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.